Joining me today is the frontman for the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, the committee that stands by the claim that there's gold and silver manipulation in the markets. Bill Murphy joins me now. He's also the founder of Le Metropole Cafe, his own blog. Thanks for being with me, Bill.
Great, Daniela, good to see you again.
Bill, last time we saw each other was last week at the Silver Summit in Spokane, and some sparks flew when strong allegations were made against one of your key witnesses, whistleblower Andrew Maguire. I brought you on today to help clear the record and move on from this subject. What are your thoughts on what transpired?
Yeah, well, like my colleague Chris Powell likes to say, we're a fact-finding organization. And what happened was this thing got out of hand in terms of Andrew Maguire's supposed credibility. Anybody who knows Andrew knows he knows the markets as well as anyone, has got a great reputation in London and all over the world. What happened is that I was appearing before the CFTC on March 25th, 2010. Andrew Maguire had given information to the CFTC with emails in advance of how JP Morgan was rigging the silver market. It's all in writing. He was hanging out at a waterhole in London for a long time with the Morgan traders. Since the CFTC wouldn't allow him to testify, he gave the information to Adrian Douglas, my colleague, went over his background, the whole thing, and I'm sure he mentioned at one point it was just a throw-in thing that he'd work with Aaron, and it's everybody knows if you say you work for Aaron, it's commonly said, well, you work for Goldman. So in my testimony to the CFTC, I said he's a London metals trader. I said formerly of Goldman Sachs or of J. Aaron, and it was just put down there. Now, I didn't hear a thing about it again for a year and a half or two, when all of a sudden it became a big deal at the Silver Summit a couple years ago that Jeff Christian brought it up. Well, I couldn't go back to Adrian because I hadn't spoken to Andrew at the time because he had terminal brain cancer. And, unfortunately, Adrian's died, so that can't be cleared up. But that is nothing compared to the evidence that was presented about Morgan manipulating the silver market. Why isn't that discussed?
And we'll get to that in a second, Bill, but maybe you can help clarify as to why you testified in front of the CFTC and not Andrew.
Well, I was scheduled all along to testify about the manipulation of the markets. It was about position limits. And I had met Bart Chilton 4 or 5 months earlier, and I think with his help, I was able to get on there. Most people think they wouldn't even allow me to do so. But I was allowed to testify, even though mine was the only live showing that was blacked out by their cameras. They said it was an error of some sort.
And I just want to clarify, Bill, that Kitco News has repeatedly asked Andrew Maguire to come on the show. He has yet to accept the invitation. But how did Andrew Maguire ever surface? How did GATA find him, and how did this all come about?
Well, as we're saying, is that I was going to speak in front of the CFTC, and Andrew thought he was going to be allowed to do also. And when he wasn't able to, they wouldn't let him speak. He contacted Adrian Douglas, who he was speaking to, and then we got all this information at the last minute. We hoped we could get it in. It wasn't part of my testimony. But Bart Chilton, who was receiving these emails about this manipulation, knew what was going on, knew how credible Andrew was because Chilton had spoken to Andrew Maguire. He allowed it to be brought in at the last minute, and that's how this all started.
And we'll move past this, Bill, but I just want to know if you've spoken to Andrew since the Silver Summit.
Just by email back and forth.
Bill, did Jeffrey Christian's presentation hurt GATA? Did any of your members question what he said?
Well, anytime you have allegations, you look at them. You don't throw it away blindly. But if anything, this has helped GATA because people are realizing that the gold cartel, as we call it, has to be in trouble to put out an attack dog like this about what the message, versus the message, shoot the messenger kind of thing.
Well, hopefully we can move past Maguire and you and Jeffrey Christian can make peace, Bill.
Not going to happen.
Okay, well, on that note, now that the CFTC has closed its 5-year investigation into silver manipulation, they came out saying they couldn't find any evidence of manipulation. What's next for GATA?
Well, that's just a small part of it. Right now, my colleague Chris Powell has been in Australia, New Zealand speaking and at conferences. And if anybody really wants to understand what GATA is all about, Chris's speech is at the GATA.org website. Titled Gold Price Suppression, Why, How, and How Much. You just have to read the whole thing. It's getting rave reviews all over the internet for people that have read it and so on. So, the silver investigation, what the heck? It's sort of silly. They take some 5 years to investigate the silver market, and right about their time limit was about to run out. They said they couldn't find anything. Meanwhile, the Justice Department, this is all fact, is investigating J.P. Morgan in 5 different areas for fraud or market manipulation. 5 different areas. The only market that they're not manipulating, I guess, is the silver market. Everybody knows they were involved in the LIBOR scandal. What, just gold and silver they're not manipulating? So, but that's just one thing, and I think we can explain it from a GATA standpoint, is that the investigators are checking everything out, and they're realizing that their own government is part of the manipulation.
Well, Bill, I know I'll see you again at the Metals and Minerals Conference coming up in San Francisco, and I know we'll hear more from you on this topic.
Well, and most importantly, I'd like to talk about it down the road is how come gold is going down when the stock market keeps going up and the euro's been going up and tapering's supposed to be a big deal. But since the last quantitative easing, gold's dropped $400 or $500 and the Dow's going up 2,000 points. What should be good for the goose should be good for the gander.
Well, Bill, I guess some people would argue that's the exact reason gold is going down, because the stock market is rallying.
Well, they can say what they want.
Well, thanks so much, Bill. It's always a pleasure seeing you. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, Daniela.
And thanks for watching this edition of Kitco News. You can email us at newsfeedback@kitco.com or follow me on Twitter at Daniela Cambone. Thanks for watching.